afternoon, everyone. For today's case presentation, we will be discussing a client named Teddy. As Teddy's clinician, Marissa will be giving her very first case presentation and providing us with some information about Teddy, and then we'll open it up to questions and commentary. Does that sound okay for everyone?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so hello all. The client I'm going to be telling you about today is new to the VA. His name is Teddy. Teddy's a 32-year-old veteran who currently lives in Brooklyn with his fiance. He was released from Walter Reed about 6 months ago following a combat incident in which Teddy's unit was ambushed, resulting in a number of his men dying and his leg needing to be amputated. So for his background, he served in a pretty prestigious military academy, excelled in football in both high school and in college. His family has a storied military history and background themselves. Both his father and grandfather served in the armed forces. And Teddy himself has served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan as a special operations commander. So when I met with him last week, he presented quite withdrawn and quiet. It actually took quite a long time for him to begin talking, and when he did, he really began to sob and asked for his fiancée to come sit with us. And after she came in, it seemed like he was better able to answer my questions. He openly told me that he really needed help, that his discharge from the military was not something that he expected, and he was just having a hard time in general adjusting to civilian life post-military. So he described having pretty consistent insomnia with additional nightmares and flashbacks where he hears the screams of his men begging for help. He spends most of his days at home watching television and generally feeling unmotivated to go out, even if it means not going to his physical therapy appointments. His fiancée told me that he does not want to be at home, he routinely ignores calls from his friends and family, and has generally isolated himself. And from this first meeting, it seems like Teddy has really been struggling both physically and psychologically following his discharge. Since this was our first interaction, the information I have about him is really preliminary, but I would like to hear everyone's thoughts about what directions I should pursue in future appointments with him.
Has he expressed any current or past suicidal ideation or self-injury?
That wasn't part of this assessment, but it definitely needs to be covered, and I'll follow up with that in our future session.
Do you know what actually happened when he and his unit experienced the ambush?
I only know that his unit was ambushed, and the amputation itself is the result of a roadside bomb. He was medevaced basically out of the field and then later transported to the United States for more consistent care, and since that point he's been at Walter Reed until about 6 months ago.
I see. But is what he's seeing or hearing a nightmare or flashback of the actual experience, perhaps hallucinations that are different from his actual experience at the ambush?
Yeah, it's interesting because how he described it to me was that he's laying in bed trying to fall asleep and is unable to because when he attempts to relax and fall asleep, he is hearing and sort of reliving this experience of his men screaming and asking for his help and being unable to do so. It's unclear. I think he maybe experiences nightmares also, but that was primarily how he described the insomnia.
What do we know about his physical health? Is he experiencing pain?
So his Walter Reed file, his medical file, isn't complete. I do have his consent to receive his full file, so I will do that when we meet next time. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned he was resisting going to physical therapy, but has he shown signs of coming to terms with his new physical reality?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what kind of modifications he currently has in his home in terms of physically dealing with the amputation and whether more arrangements need to be made. I'm not quite sure what he can afford at this point. He's relying on his girlfriend or his fiancée for financial help. So what we need to do an assessment of what the VA can offer and what his insurance covers.
Yeah, that's a good point because it will be important to know what support he's entitled to now that he's back in civilian life. Do we know if he's taking any medications or using any drugs?
So we didn't discuss what kind of prescribed medications he's currently taking. Hopefully when his full file comes in from Walter Reed, we'll be able to get that information. And definitely in a future meeting, I'll have to discuss like self-medication with him, because that's definitely important to know in terms of moving forward in his treatment.
I have one more question. Do we know in his previous returns, you said he'd served previous tours, was he able to adjust to civilian life better then, or was he showing symptoms of not being able to adjust before as well?
Yeah, that's correct. So he has done 3 tours in the past before this current one. So I think in the future we'll definitely need to cover what happened during those tours and what adjustment looked like once he was back from being deployed, and sort of how that fits into his current situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, addressing, you know, not only like the effects of cumulative trauma, but also what's helped in the past. What are your strengths?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so thank you guys for all of your suggestions and commentary. So I think based off our discussion, we've covered sort of discussing definitely suicidality and self-harm. Then we'll cover basically a little bit more about his physical health once that file comes in, and getting a better idea of modifications that he needs or currently has in regards to his amputation, going to physical therapy, how that has been for him, and then, you know, again with the medications or self-medicating, and then finally with you know, doing a fuller assessment of his previous experience being deployed and returning back to the United States.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marissa, for presenting this interesting case, and I have to say, good job on your first case presentation. And thank you everyone else for your contributions. Let's wrap it up here since we've run out of time. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.